My name is Margo Miller. I'm currently a resident of the Cold Springs community in East Knoxville. Cold Spring is located off of Magnolia Avenue and Cherry Street. I intentionally, whenever I look for any place to live, because I know that reliable transportation is always an issue, I intentionally look for a place that has access to public transportation. So fortunately for me, I can walk a block in either direction and catch the city bus. Now, how frequently that bus runs is a completely different issue, but I am within walking distance of city transportation.
Okay.
And I do own a car. And the whole thing of access to transportation, when I first moved back to Knoxville, I didn't have a car. So I relied heavily on the bus system. And I was able to get on the bus, go to the grocery store. With a reasonable load of groceries, I could come back with a load of groceries. But now that I have a car, I go maybe 2 minutes from my home to the Kroger that's located in the neighborhood and get my groceries. So I'm able to shop not too far from my home for groceries, even when I was on a bus. For me, as a single person, catching the bus to get groceries to feed myself is not an issue. However, if I was a part of a household that had to feed more than one person, catching the bus to get groceries, it could be an issue. Taking all the bags of groceries onto the bus, sitting on the bus with a bag of groceries, picking up the bags of groceries to get off on your stop, and then carrying those bags of groceries, a block or two or three, to your home and then putting it in the refrigerator. I could see how that could be an issue. Fortunately for me, I'm not as isolated as some folks are from fresh produce, from access to healthy food choices. I do live in a neighborhood, however, that would rather put up several fast food restaurants, convenience stores that have quick snacks and sugary, treats that are more expensive than fresh produce. I do live in an area where it's more convenient to go to those type places. So I'm very familiar with food deserts, and I think that even though Knoxville, and particularly where I live, is not a food desert, people that have issues with accessibility, it is inconvenient. So not quite a desert, maybe whatever the next level down is from a desert, but it's a lot more convenient to go, 1 block to the fast food joint that I refuse to do marketing for by saying their name, or the other one on the other corner, than it is to go to the grocery store. You can walk to the fast food place. The fast food places are open until 1, and fortunately the grocery store is open until 12. And sometimes I think, even though it's open until 12, I think it might open up to where realistically, it's pretty much open all the time. It might have a few hours that it closes to do whatever. But the fast food places are open all the time. The gas stations are open all the time. So you can go in and get a bag of chips and a soda anytime. And for the people that work a late shift, or the shift where you work overnight, you're pretty much, that's one of the choices that you have. Your choice is to go to the place that's open, go to the place that's convenient. I actually come from a family of farmers. So when I moved back to Knoxville, I had a raised bed garden. So yes, I have gardened, a very small raised bed. I grew a few vegetables. I grew tomatoes, okra, beans, cucumbers, potatoes, and a few other things I can't really remember. Not all of them were successful, just because of various inexperienced reasons, but I did attempt to grow a garden, and I did that for a couple of years. But because of my work and the hours that are expected of me to work, I sort of gave up on the vegetable garden idea this year, and instead have used that plot to grow flowers from, just to keep the soil, because I didn't have the time to tend to weed, to keep it watered on a regular basis to ensure the proper growth. I love the concept of a community garden. I think if I had access to a community garden, I would do better in that setting because there would be a smaller section that I could tend to and that I could be responsible for. But if I was traveling, and I do travel a lot, I also know that it's a community garden and there would be a collective of folks that would actually help take care of and tend to the garden. So I love the community garden concept. I think it builds community. I think it shows the whole thing of collective involvement, engagement with the community, not to mention the whole thing of access to healthy food. So I love the idea of a community garden. We've had a couple of attempts in this neighborhood for a community garden. Unfortunately, they have not been successful. And one of the reasons was soil content. I can't remember all the different reasons why the soil failed, but the plot that we had laid out and identified for a community garden did not pass this soil inspection. There's a lot of different reasons why it's not working right now, but we have talked about it in the neighborhood. There are a few of us who are very interested in the concept and in the idea, who understand it as a necessity for a healthy food access, even looking at teaching each other, healthy recipes with fresh fruits and vegetables, teaching each other to can and all of these other things so we can have access to healthy food choices. But there are a couple of barriers in the way. Most of those are time and financial resources. I think there are barriers to the solution, and the barriers to the solution have to do with resources. So if there were something that were in place that could provide us with the tools, some of the basic setup type of things that we would need to build a community garden, I think that would be very helpful. And then there are also the whole thing of educating people around the notion of a community garden. So resources, lack of resources, access to those resources is a barrier. And then the whole thing of educating the community about the benefit, I think that is a barrier. There's a few people that are interested, that see the benefit, but to be able to educate the rest of the folks about the benefit, it's a barrier, but it's also an opportunity to educate the community. We can make mandates of not putting a fast food joint in every corner. Put a vegetable stand. Allow people to set up vegetable stands on every other day. Have a farmer's market instead of a little section of a street that just has fast food joint after fast food joint after fast food joint. Provide people with alternatives to some of the things that we currently have access to. Put those in place. Not only put them in place, but encourage them. Not just allow them, but encourage those things to happen. And I think that would sort of rectify a lot of the problems. You probably can elaborate on a lot of other solutions, but I think if the government and other folks that are involved that actually can make these things happen, if they would encourage it, then that we would be all good. Even businesses, businesses could get involved with this. They have the resources to make this stuff happen. So I'm all about looking at the systems that are in place and identifying those systems that hinder certain growth and working on changing those systems. But I think in addition to providing people with access to healthy food, another key component is educating people about healthy food choices. If we had all the resources and the magic wands in the world, we could put fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy everything on every corner right at people's doorsteps. But people, if they're not educated about how to utilize those systems, I think that would be, it would go to waste. And I think that there have been so many things that have been put in place, the quick and fast we've learned in this particular culture. We want things quick, we want things fast, we want immediate gratification. We don't have time to do this, we don't have the money to do this. You could take the same, I don't know how much a meal cost, a Happy Meal or whatever those things are called, the meals, the combo meals cost $5, $6. You could take that same $6, buy food, take 20 minutes, 20-minute meals that you could take fresh food, prepare it for yourself. It would be so much better and so much more gratifying. Some people don't know about that. So there's a certain amount of education that you would have to do to accompany anything that was put in place to educate people, to let them know there are alternatives. This isn't painful. This is not as hard as you think it is. Guess what? It can be enjoyable to be able to do these type things together. Involve the family. Get your friends together. Have a food cooking party with your friends. Garden with your friends. You might grow tomatoes. I might grow peppers. Someone else might grow cilantro. Let's get together, chop all that stuff up, and make some salsa together. There's different ways of educating people about food choices, and I think providing educational opportunities for people around food, whether it's group education, individual education, family-led education, I think that's important. If East Knoxville had a farmer's market, to where we can market and sell stuff from East Knoxville and then put that back into the community, to me that instills a sense of community pride. I love that idea and I love that notion. It's just a matter of how we make it happen.